Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us this evening. It's lovely to see you. And thank you so much, Maureen, for joining us on this Earth Energies group Zoom call. We're really happy to have you here, joining from Long Island in the US. And just to introduce you a little bit, and then we'll do a blessing for the Zoom space, if that's okay with everyone. We are just so happy to have you with us, Maureen. You're a visionary teacher and an author and a guide, and you bridge earth-based spirituality and your intuitive practice and our evolving relationship with the natural world. So you founded the Luminous Spaces School, which is such a beautiful name, and you help people learn about feng shui and biophilic design, dowsing, and conscious nature connection. And you host the Enchanted Earth podcast. So thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for the work you do. And we've sent out links to your places where you can be found and where people can connect with you. And you're going to talk about awakening Earth, dowsing in a time of rapid consciousness shift. And what an appropriate topic. It's so perfect. So thank
Yes.
you so much. If I just briefly share, because Ali Denham, who normally does the um, blessings at the beginning and the end of our calls. She is traveling at a conference at the moment, so I've got the words she uses. So if I start with doing the blessing to hold space and create sacred space, and invite you, Maureen, to start when you feel ready and the time is appropriate. Kindly, luminous beings, guardians of this Zoom space. We are here in love and peace and ask for your blessings, protection, love and hospitality for ourselves, the technology and the communications while we are in this Zoom space. And so let it be.
That is so beautiful, so simple and beautiful. I'm so grateful to be here. I um I just want to share that I'm not in my typical office. I am painting, so I'm in a guest room and I apologize for the background. I hope it's not too distracting for you today. But I am just I love this group and how this group is such a warm embrace of like-minded souls. And I want to thank Melanie so much for her wonderful embrace in bringing me into this group and kind of ushering me through the process of getting aligned with a date and working through all the details. So thank you so much. And thank you so much, Alex, for your introduction. And I was just sharing with her earlier that I watched again the presentation she did a few months ago on the dragons and the labyrinths, and just phenomenal. And I watched Jim's presentation too last month, and I'm trying to keep up with everybody's presentation here. And I am so excited to share with you my thoughts today, because it's not every day that we can share these very esoteric, deep thoughts that we are receiving and intuiting in our lives. And this is a group that I feel that I can. So thank you. And to get your feedback and to get your what's coming up for you. And I'm going to try to talk slower just because I understand my accent will be it's a New York accent, yes. I will try to enunciate things a little bit simpler, so the information is communicated. So yeah, I just want to thank everybody here for being present. And like I said at the end, I really look forward to hearing your thoughts about what is occurring on this planet, because we're all feeling it for sure. So, without further ado, I just wanted to share a little bit about my background as we go through just the first few minutes of this presentation. I'm going to share some case studies of projects that I've done. I'm also going to share some other kinds of experiences I've had that have brought me to some of the conclusions. And maybe that's not the right word. It's more of thoughts. There's no conclusion. There's no hard and fast conclusions that I'm coming to, except for the fact that we are in a rapid consciousness shift. And I think um, we can all agree that nothing seems to be the same as it has been, right? So I guess let's open the door to this magical, mystical world that we all work in dowsing. So I've been a dowser and geomancer since 2006 when I was taking a feng shui certification course. And one of my teachers actually was Jill Hale, who does feng shui and dowsing, and she's based in the UK. I don't know if any of you are familiar with her, but so she actually brought dowsing rods for everybody. And I was like very skeptical because, I think perhaps my experience as an American with dowsing is a little different, maybe if you were born in the UK or Ireland and maybe you've seen it a little bit more in your life or discussed more, but it was completely out of left field to me. And I was really skeptical. So here I am with my rods. And there was actually a simple exercise. She said, okay, point, have your rods point to where the teacher just went, or, the founder of the school went. And I thought she went back into the building because we were outside. So I expected my rods to point to the building, but my rods went, and I was very surprised to see her over there. So it was one of those kind of like flash of knowing that I am supposed to learn about these rods. I'm supposed to be doing this work. So you probably have had a similar experience to that as well. But I've been dowsing ever since. And the type of work I do is working with clients in their homes and their businesses and the land. And but the how and why that I've practiced has changed quite a bit over the years. I started out in a role as healer for my clients, especially when they had health issues. And now I'm more of a bridge to opening others, to building a relationship with their inner world and their outer spaces. And it wasn't a single epiphany that I had from my guys, but it was more of a process of slowly evolving over this 20 years through dreams, through journaling, through working with clients and having experiences, walking with nature with or without my rods. And, but I am going to share this one, experience that I did have that I can kind of look back to now over like the past 10 years and see this as a turning point for me in my understanding. So I was visiting my son when he was attending college in the Adirondacks, which is a northern New York state park. It's huge. Actually, no, it's a national park. And they have spectacular sacred pines there. And I had an experience of this huge pine tree actually pushing me back. I lost my balance. My husband actually was next to me and he reached out his arm to grab me because he thought I was going to fall. And I didn't. But at least I had a witness there. When we have sometimes a very physical experience and we go, well, did that really happen or was it just made up in my mind? But I knew it did. So, as always, I knew enough when I approached this pine tree that was attracting me. I asked for permission to connect and I hover my hands just a few inches from the bark just to see if I could feel any energy. Sometimes I would get a message, but not all the time. So I just, without any anticipation, put my hands out, and the tree energetically smacked me right here, pushed me back, and right here was the image of an eye, the third eye. So I knew that the tree was sending me a message. That was pretty clear, I think. Wake up. And at the time, I was really kind of confused because I was doing a lot of dowsing work. I thought I was awake, but what happens with a lot of these really pivotal experiences in our lives is the message unfolds over time, right? And I only see it now, like 10 years later, uh, that the message was manyfold. Uh, Part of it was that I needed to approach my work differently. What I was doing in the past was no longer helpful, maybe, or really what I was supposed to do. And I needed to I needed to really improve or transform what I was doing with earth energy work. And I did it slowly because it was being uncovered to me a little at a time. I'm so glad I keep a journal because in this journal, I'm a very active dreamer, so I have a dream journal. But over the years, I started incorporating all sorts of, mystical experiences I would write down. So I was able to look at this particular experience, which happened in 2015, and it was September. And this was just yesterday. I realized that 3 months later, I had another wake up, very embodied, visceral experience. This time I was laying in bed and I had a clairaudient experience of a door slamming in my face. Now, it wasn't just the sound, but it was the wind from the door slamming on the left side. And I mean, I jumped out of bed. I was quite startled. And actually, that experience led me to leave my job in marketing, which I've been working at, you know, for my whole adult life. I've been doing marketing in New York City and Greenwich, Connecticut. And I left that job. And I also left a job where I was teaching at an interior design school, a feng shui certification program with two other colleagues. And in this experience, I realized that I needed to go out on my own and start my own online school and to teach the way I was being open to teach and not be constrained by the founder of the school or my colleagues. I really needed to go out and do this on my own. So it was a huge awakening year for me, 2015. And I'm grateful for doing this presentation because, like I said, when I just had the idea that, wow, that happened within 3 months. Um, but now, even now, in the last couple of years, that experience in the woods of the pine tree, the meaning is getting deeper. And I wouldn't have known it back in 2015. And I don't think any of us, well, maybe some of you, psychically knew that there was going to be a huge turning point. I think, you know what? I'm going to correct myself. I'm going to say that we've all of us here, have known that there was going to be major shift in our lifetime. I think we've been preparing it. We've been preparing for it our whole lives. But the fact that it's here is pretty like, wow. Back in 2015, though, I don't know if it was top of mind for me. And I really do think it was showing this cosmic wake up call that we're all having right now. So, in preparing for this talk, I actually asked guidance from spirit, and I pulled a few tarot cards, and I'm just going to share them with you because I think they're so in sync and aligned with what we're going to talk about here today. First, I got the Star card, I got the Page of Cups, and the Queen of Cups. So the Star card is the light in the distance, a vision that calls us forward. It speaks of renewal, higher consciousness, and deep alignment with something much greater than ourselves. In this time of planetary shift, I believe we're being called to attune to a new kind of guidance that's cosmic and deeply embodied. And it's reminding us that what's unfolding now is not chaos, but a deeper pattern that is seeking to express itself. And then I got the Page of Cups, and I love this image of the fish jumping out of the cup. I mean, it's like, surprise! Wow, I love surprises. Um, but it's also telling us not to rest too much in our intellect, in our mental capacity, but to really kind of lean more into the intuitive. To this new consciousness is asking us to listen to the earth like a poem, not a problem to be solved. And I think that is just so magical. And then finally, we have the Queen of Cups. And this is the archetype many of us are living into. I think it's holding space and listening deeply and allowing the earth to speak to us. And this is what I invite us all in today. So today, let's consider that the earth herself is changing and that the energy grid of the planet is shifting in real time. And I believe we're being asked to lean into a new way of being, sensing, and opening up to relating. So, as energy healers, I always think of that um, that story of all the blind men reaching out and touching the elephant. Right? We're all trying to describe this invisible elephant, and we're all from our own place and our own filtering and perspectives and worldview, doing the best we can to describe this elephant. But we're human and we can't separate ourselves completely from the fact that we have our own judgments and our own challenges, right? But we're all on the way of our own journey with our accumulated experience. And that is what I love about this work, but is also so challenging. So I want to bring this up because I feel that I know I have been in my process of evolution in this work and continue to feel maybe lacking something if I don't get the same information as another person. So when we don't receive the same information when we're dowsing, we may feel inadequate and disconnected from our source. And that I think is a tragedy. And I felt that inadequacy and I try to instill the uniqueness of our own authentic connections to my students and my clients and not to compare their experiences with another. So honoring our unique connections, I think, is so important. We're all part of this fractal of the divine source, and we're all meant to communicate in our own unique way with our own unique gifts. And, in my feng shui training, one of my mentors said that our role as, say, a feng shui practitioner, but really an earth energy practitioner, is to be the cure. And those are kind of said in more like Chinese feng shui terms, the cure. But in other words, right, it's to work on ourselves, to evolve to a place that we can ultimately emit the frequencies from our own energy fields out to harmonize the space. And I think this isn't relegated to just us geomancers and dowsers and earth energy practitioners or energy practitioners. I think all human beings are meant, right? We're all meant to cultivate this inner soul, cultivate our consciousness and energy so that when we walk on the earth, we are healing, we're harmonizing, we're creating greater coherence wherever we go. So ultimately, that is our goal. So before I get further into the presentation, I just wanted to share some of the things that I think we are, well, I am experiencing, and I really look forward to hearing what you are as well. But the earth energy is more dynamic and more intense than ever before. That energy is more fluid and relational versus being kind of fixed in places. That sacred sites are evolving and emerging as well. That light codes are coming into this planet in a, I guess, ferocity more than ever before, perhaps. That the concepts of fear versus love are bigger than ever and they're in our face to deal with finally. And that resting in this wonderment and joy and play of being alive on this planet and what we are here to do. So that's kind of the short, and I'll go into again how I got here. So uh, I think I shared a little bit of this about my past with you. You know, there are many roads that we travel as dowsers, and I'm grateful to be part of this group where there's so many ways that people are bringing this out to the world to help heal and help increase the consciousness of the planet. And I'm coming at it from, like I said, a feng shui consultation background. So I really did work with people who needed help with illness. And that's how I started on this path. And over the 8 to 10 years of my practice, the first 8 to 10 years, it was doing that type of work, identifying black line streams, global grid lines, spirit portals, EMFs, and other kind of lower vibrational energy. And at some point, I started looking for more of the power spots, the sacred places, places with beneficial energy, because I realized just focusing on the negative, we were ignoring, I was ignoring the beneficial areas of the land. So I started doing both. And my work has really been heavily influenced by Jungian psychology, depth psychology, and different manifestations of that. I was magnetized to this concept called terra psychology. And it's how the landscape gets into us and serves as a metaphor for the inner realm. So, as above, so below. To see the unseen for better clarity in our lives. So, helping clients look at the landscape and seeing, identifying the metaphor for what's going on in their personal lives. And it actually was very much what I was doing in feng shui. So it made a lot of sense because a lot of work in feng shui is looking at the interior of a house and seeing the metaphor there, what's going on with the client internally, it's being reflected on the outside, but the land too. And in feng shui, we always talk about how the land is 90% of the good feng shui or not. So I really then shifted my attention from homes to the land. And that's where my spirit was calling me. I realized over these next years that so many of my clients, mostly American, so I don't know what you've experienced, but so many of them have no conscious relationship with the land that they live on. And I started realizing that I could perhaps, with some of them, kind of open up that little gate, that little portal to support them in awakening to the a consciousness of nature on their land and deepening their relationship with it. And to maybe help shift their worldview a little bit to see everything as alive and conscious. And then more recently, I would say in the last few years, my focus kind of shifted when recognizing positive psychology, because I think everything to do with our relationship within ourselves and other people, we can extrapolate to the earth as well. So, positive psychology, if you're unaware of what it is, it's focusing on our gifts and our beauty rather than on our trauma and suffering. So that even the most neglected or damaged landscapes have beauty within. And by shifting the focus from that trauma to her gifts and her beauty, with a sense of connectedness and, of course, reverence and playfulness, it helps raise the frequencies of the planet and all the beings there. So it's inviting that, nature spirit to be more vibrant and alive and perhaps return to the land. So that is where I've really have wound up. So I love this map of consciousness. I bring this up because I have 4 planets in Virgo, so I have a lot of need for structure and order. So I read Dr. David Hawkins' book called I was going to say Voices of the Earth, but that's eco psychology. This is called Power versus Force. And I am sure many of you have read this. He did tons of studies in kinesiology, muscle testing, looking at the levels of consciousness. And you could find this map, just Google map of consciousness, and you'll find it online. It's incredibly, I think, illuminating for me. And a few really main points in this book that really, I started bringing this into not only my work, but my personal life, obviously. That we're born into a level of consciousness that's kind of like a set point, and that by raising our consciousness, that is accessible to everybody. Of course, we have free will. We're all able to do it, yet most people don't deviate very much from their set point of consciousness. And that our most important contribution to the planet, to other humans, to every living thing, is to do our inner work, right? And open to awareness of our shadows and how we project onto the outer world, our inner own deficiencies, right? And then the other aspect of this is the higher we ascend this ladder of consciousness, the more, it's the more exponential impact we have on the frequencies of the planet. So none of this is really new, but those gems that you get hit over and over again through world religions, through philosophers, ancient philosophers, even new philosophers. They've all said these things in different ways, but sometimes you hear it in a certain way and you're like, oh, now I get it. And that is really kind of what happened with me. So one little sidebar is I got the idea because, again, I have 4 planets in Virgo, to create my own little luminosity scale, which will read the light or the consciousness of a land, of a home, of anything, right? I was going around my house going crazy, um, doing the luminosity of not every single object, but I would just pick objects up and do it and be like, oh, that's interesting. And I started seeing this really cool pattern emerge of, things that are, like, a pen. It's, of course, it's made of natural materials because everything on the planet is made of natural materials. However, it's so far from it. Its energy is pretty low. And I would then, of course, live plants would get, huge numbers, be up 90s to 100, right? And then I would do artwork, and artwork that I bought at a, place that had it mass produced somewhere in Asia would usually kind of come at a very low end of the score. But artwork that was made by my child or by somebody I loved would be very high. So it was just an interesting pattern that I saw. And it's just a simple pendulum scale. But so I use this often in my work. And just getting back to that most important learning I felt from that book by Dr. David Hawkins was the fact that our influence is exponentially greater. Every little step, every little minute degree, we raise our consciousness. And that idea, made me realize, I had my own personal epiphany that we don't need the majority of us on this planet to tip the scales, because that's never going to happen. We're not going to have 51% of people on this planet saying, that they're awakened and they're aware and they're conscious and present. However, that small percentage of people that really work and work and work, we build this up, we will turn it all into this beautiful, luminous presence on this planet. I am certain of it. And I love this graphic. And I'm going to say that I did take it from Instagram or Pinterest. I don't know who created it, but I would attribute who did. But I yeah, I really loved it and wanted to add that because I just think it's just a great little visual. So, when you need to learn something, you get it again and again. So I'm going to share a couple of quick clients that will illustrate. So I had a recurring client for about 10 years. She was living on a Long Island subdivision that was really built on farmland. Now, Long Island was literally all farmland at one point, not long ago. 200 years ago, all of Long Island was farms. As you might have heard of suburbia. The beginning of suburbia was on Long Island. It was in Levittown. And that was after World War II when the veterans came back. They needed some place to live. So they started building these subdivisions and started taking the farmland and whatever open spaces and building them out. Now, yeah, so further out on Long Island, there thankfully are still some farms, but yeah, many of them are being sold to developers. So anyhow, so this client was living in one of those homes. It had no mature trees. And in fact, her backyard was really manicured to the hilt. A basketball court, a pool, masonry around the pool, a huge deck, a boat house, not a boathouse, a pool house. I mean, and everything inside the house was designed by an interior designer, and everything outside was designed by a landscape designer. So there was really no authenticity of this client to speak of. So this is another view of the property here. So in the past, I always focused on the home because that's why she called me. She wanted feng shui. So I would go and help her figure out what elements needed to be boosted for this room or that room based on the Bagua map. And I did that several times until one time she called me and things were different. She was in the middle of a really messy divorce, and she was in a very traumatic period of her life, one of those turning points. So she wanted me to come, and I knew I had to go to the land this time. There was no more of this other stuff that I felt was more surface. working on the surface of the energy, and we really needed to go deeper. And at the same time, of course, not coincidentally, she had joined a yoga certification training class. Uh, she really did it because a friend was doing it and got her to do it. And she had the money and she had the time, so she did it, but she was more involved in the physical process of the yoga rather than the metaphysical. So anyhow, so I came there and I did some dowsing. Now I asked, now over on the left is just a brief little overview of the luminosity readings that I received before and after our ceremony. And so her house was at a 64. I mean, the land was at a 64, which isn't bad. Um, Anything under 60 is what I consider life draining or life sucking. Anything 60 and over is, of course, the higher you go, the more life affirming. So it wasn't terrible, but it was on the border. And then I do the five elements because five elements are kind of the thing I'm known for. I wrote a book called Creating Luminous Spaces about the five elements. So it's really an important part of my work. So I read the elements and their luminosity and see what areas or what elements need to be kind of used in a kind of corrective way to bring more harmony to the land. And the elements also represent a lot of different things. There's so many layers to the elements, but just briefly, the wood element was low as well as earth. And the wood element has to do with ambition, drive, initiative, strength, those types of things. Earth, of course, is always related to nourishment, stability, being responsible, nurturing not just others, but self care and self nurturing. And these two elements were really kind of deficient in her lifestyle and the way she was expressing. So I asked her to gather some rocks and to go out on an intentional walk to gather some rocks at the beach. I brought flowers that represented wood and we did an honoring ceremony. But before I did, I said to her, oh, well, first of all, let me just share what this map is showing. As you can see, this is a property survey. I'm sure that they're similar in other areas of the world. This is the house. These are for power spots because I was told to not focus on any negative. That was not going to be helpful to her, to focus on the power, the positive, beneficial energy. So we went into a backyard and I said, where do you feel drawn to on your land? Like where, I would have asked her very simply, where do you want to honor the land? But she needed a little bit more support. So I was like, where do you love? Like, where do you love being in? What areas do you resonate with on your land? She looked at me like, what? Like, what are you talking about? And she looked around and then she went, oh, oh. She goes, well, I love sitting on the deck looking out over there. She talks about here, being on the deck over here, looking out in this direction because there's, thick manicured grass, but there's a little, what's called a chain link fence. And beyond it was the woods. And she said, I love looking over there because it's where I see deer and squirrels and the birds. And I went to myself, the wild nature. And what a metaphor that was to her experience of life that she was going through because she was so manicured that she didn't realize that she was being really drawn to being in that wild nature. So this was that area, right? So this is that big expanse of lawn, and there's a little chain link fence back there that she can see through and see the trees, see trees. So we sat on the lawn and we created a beautiful little flower mandala together as an offering to nature spirit. And at the time, I wasn't so sure that this was landing with her, that she was really into it. But a few years later, she told me that she looks back at that moment as a pivotal moment in her life, that that really it did kind of awaken her at some level to the beauty of nature, and that it was really missing. Now, so I had this client and then another one in Toronto within a week. It was a few days later. Similar thing. It was a house on a subdivision. Again, everything on the property was completely manicured. There were no mature trees, none of it. And when I asked the client, I did the dowsing. Here's the house, here's the pool, and these are power spots. There's actually several power spots all around. I was somewhat surprised. But again, when I asked the client, now I wasn't there, I was doing this remotely. I asked the client where she wanted to do an offering to nature, and she picked back here along the fence, again, with the idea that that is where the wild nature is. That she was recognizing that there's no vibrant nature spirit on her land. It's over there. So this really opened me to the idea that we as a collective humanity are craving, unconsciously craving this deeper connection with life and living things. We have this veneer of separation, and we are really craving that wild nature with a full, authentic soul expression. And another just brief client in Connecticut, I dowsed and then I actually visited in person. And I pull up to the house and I am pulling into the driveway here, and here's the house. And look at that. There are huge boulders over to the left as I'm pulling in, and they're just there. They're just gorgeous. And that is one thing that Connecticut has that we really don't have much of. Where I live on Long Island are these what's called glacial erratics that are deposited by the glaciers. And they have a lot of them in Connecticut. And when people have these on their property, there's just such strong spirit energy there, nature spirit. It's just wonderful. So I got hit by this like, oh, when I pull in. So I'm in the house. I mean, she asked me to do feng shui. So we're in the house and we're looking out at these boulders. And I said to her, I just remarked how magnificent those boulders are on her property. And she said to me, what boulders? So we went out and I brought her around and we walked around them, and she said, oh, like she got this like, oh my gosh, we is it bad that we collect all of our leaves, rake our leaves and put them in between these boulders to burn them, every fall? And she's like, oh my God, are we being disrespectful? And I just felt that, yes, it was in a way, but I wasn't going to tell her that. That wouldn't help her. That would just add more to her fear and worry. So I assured her, no, you weren't doing it out of disrespect, which is true. You were just, there was just a lack of awareness of what the energy of these boulders represented. So what matters is how you connect going forward. Now that you know nature spirit resides here. And I felt not disrespectful to burn the leaves there. However, give offerings, to have a dialogue with these boulders. Say, is it okay? Ask for permission. And, it just kind of like, because once people think that they're doing something that's potentially totally disrespecting the land, I feel like it just adds more to fear and worry, and that's not helpful. So opening up the dialogue to develop this relationship. And what was magical and amazing, and if any of you look at these pictures, do you see any animals? We started seeing faces of animals. As we walked around, these different animals were kind of coming through, and we had different angles. And I also saw in one way the rocks as yin and yang. So we've got the yin laying down and the yang standing up, so we've kind of got the representation of yin and yang here. But the picture on the left, all the way to the left, it's one of the yang rocks that also has like a line. It kind of looks like the bottom of a beak, like some kind of bird or maybe lizard or something looking up, right? I don't know. And on the right, there looks like on the left of the right hand picture, on the left, there's like a little flat that looks like the top of a pig nose, and a pig looking up at the sky. So I don't know, but it was really magical because the experience opened her up, and she started seeing different animals and started seeing the magic and the play that was right there. And she started relating to them as guardians, as true guardians and companions. It's beautiful. So over these last few years, literally, I've experienced how disconnected so many of my clients are to the natural world and the landscape, and to the more than human consciousness that's there. And yet something within us knows it's just covered up by millennia of disinformation. Yet this deep knowing can be stirred, and I believe it doesn't take a lot. It really doesn't take a lot to open people to this magic and mystical experience of our planet. And, I've recognized that people unknowingly crave permission to open to that experience. So I've been part of, you've probably heard of, forest bathing, and nature therapy walks. And in those walks, one of the invitations might be to go hug a tree. And it's incredible how adults are running to a tree and grabbing it and like, and it's like that childlike playfulness of experiencing our world. People just need to feel like they can do it safely, and that other people are doing it too. So they have permission. And it really is just incredible how we can, as dowsers, as geomancers, as nature therapy guides, just open like that gate and no pressure. Allow them to walk through if they'd like. And I think that's all people need right now. So we know we're in a time of extreme imbalance and disconnection on this planet. We're living in a time of this imbalance of yin and yang. It's more the masculine than the feminine, head over heart. there's a lack of love and caring for the earth that is really just a mirror reflection of our own lack of love and caring for ourselves. And this rush of energy, we may call it chaos, is in response to the rise of the yin, disturbing, uh, moving aside the yang. The yang attempts to subvert and suppress this transformative process because yang doesn't want yin to rise. So there's that real interesting dynamic. So I had a experience with this beautiful great oak walking in 2022. I was starting to write my book called The Enchanted Earth, and I was asking for some guidance to help write chapter one. So I approached another tree, did the same, asked for permission, laid my hands in front of it a few inches, and I stood there for a couple of minutes. I really wasn't expecting anything, just kind of playing. And then I stepped back to continue on the trail, and I was suddenly hit by this overwhelming grief. And I knew the grief wasn't mine. I knew it was coming from the tree, but it really was the presence of Gaia coming through the tree because I was asking Gaia for help. And I immediately realized that this grief was Gaia didn't want humanity to leave this planet. And I think so many of us, recognize that we continue down this path. Gaia will survive. We won't. Right. And so we all know that's potential. Absolutely. But that Gaia doesn't want us to leave. And, I recognize that there's this love, right? That we're her companions. And I understood that the earth didn't need us to heal. Like she's way more powerful than us. She doesn't need us, but yet she's grieving the separation that we've created. And as I continued on my walk pondering this, I suddenly had this epiphany hit me. I went, well, wait a minute. Gaia actually does need us, not for her survival, but rather to live in her fullest creative expression. That humanity plays this key role as receivers and transmitters, right, of energy from the cosmos to the earth and back. And we're like trees in that way. However, we do the ceremonies and ritual to honor her. And in doing so, we raise the consciousness and spread this light of consciousness. And this is something that we as a species uniquely do. We're starting now to awaken to our true role. And while this huge evolutionary process is really just kicking into gear, it is this transformation of consciousness. So to kind of frame some of the outer synchronicities, I guess, that are occurring at this time, we have this huge astrology of transformation. So we've got these planetary alignments, which are the signature of transformation. They're Pluto, Neptune, Uranus, Saturn, and Jupiter are all they're in the process, shall I say, of moving back and forth into new signs, which they will stay for their duration. And they're transitioning from earth and water signs, which are dense, very material kind of energies, to fire and air, which are light, expansive, visionary elements. And this is a rapid, destabilizing, but necessary evolution that we're experiencing. Now, also, Uranus and Pluto were aspected in the 1960s, and they have been preparing us for this shift, right? So Pluto was conjunct or just right next to Uranus for much of that decade. And if you were born in the 60s, like me, you have that in your chart, Pluto and Uranus conjunct at some level. Some old stories are being tested, right? That is kind of it's transformation, it's lightning bolt, revolution, testing, all of that in the 60s, right? The rise of Eastern philosophy and wisdom. These were in Virgo at the time, which is the sign of Mother Earth and Gaia. It brought us the book, Silent Spring. And the final development of that was the banning of pesticides and DDT. It was the founding of Greenpeace and Earth Day and all these wonderful earth-based types of organizations and ideology. It was also a time of brutal war and conflict. Now, here we are. Pluto is trine Uranus right now. So they were conjunct. Now they're trine, and trine is a very harmonious connection, which allows for breakthroughs of transformation, which often requires destroying the old to prepare for the new. So for much of 2025 and 2026, we have this harmonious configuration. We've got, you'll see those three circles there. The one on the left is Uranus, just entering Gemini. Then the one in the middle is Saturn and Neptune, which are entering Aries. And then, of course, you have Pluto, which just entered Aquarius last year. Was it the beginning of this year? I can't remember. But there's a lot going on in a very short period of time. Now, right now, we have this lunar eclipse. I'm sorry, the solar eclipse on September 21st actually is creating what's called a kite formation. So you can see that here. It looks like a kite. And so the outer planets have sextiles and trines, which are all harmonious aspects. And then you've got the sun and the moon, new moon, right? Conjunct, of course, when you have a new moon, but they're opposite Saturn and Neptune. So this is extremely powerful configuration for transformation and evolutionary change. So it's like, wow, no, this fact that Saturn and Neptune are conjunct at the beginning, the very, 0 degrees, 1 degrees of Aries, which is the beginning of the zodiac, hasn't happened in like 6,000 years. I'm a big follower of Pam Gregory, an astrologer based in the UK. Amazing. And she's bringing all this wonderful transformational astrological information to us. So there's also the solar maximum that we're in right now, which is an 11-year cycle from maximum to minimum. And it's no coincidence that all of these astrological alignments are happening at the same time as we're going through the solar maximum. From the fall of 2024, it was really active, to even now. There is so much going on with coronal mass ejections, solar flares. They're coming our way. I mean, I have, what is it, Space Watch? And I'm constantly getting alerts to the geomagnetic storms that are occurring. Now, all this energy is directed our way. Well, not all of it, obviously, but a lot of it is directed our way, and it's penetrating our planet, Earth. And many light workers and healers have been feeling the impacts of this activity. I mean, it is a barrage of energy. And for those who are highly sensitive, minor ailments, maybe even major ailments, fatigue, emotions, As Pam Gregory says, our energetic fields may feel a little zuzzy. I love that word, zuzzy. It is perfect for how I've been feeling. We are being upgraded to. And I've had many periods of being exhausted. I was sharing with Alex and Melanie when we got on that when we had this lunar eclipse this weekend, I was just not feeling, I was feeling so exhausted. Uh, thank God today I'm back to my normal self. And something else that has just peeked into our um, collective awareness is 3i Atlas coming at us, an interstellar object that is said to be coming from the constellation of Sagittarius near the galactic center of the Milky Way, where there may be a black hole there. They're unsure. Scientists are unsure. But all of this is happening in divine timing. And the Earth is responding with increased seismic activity. The Earth is waking up. Areas around the Ring of Fire, especially in the Pacific, wow. But other areas that have been asleep geologically are awakening. The Earth is actually mirroring the changes that we're experiencing in our consciousness. So, because we're receivers and transmitters of this energy, I believe it's happening through our water, the waters in our body, the waters in the landscape. That, water is said to be condensed light, carrying light codes of consciousness. And many say that the human DNA itself is evolving. People like Greg Braden and Dr. David Clemens are saying that our 24th chromosome is coming online, it's being activated, and it has to do with multidimensionality. This stuff is like blowing my mind. I have no idea really what multidimensionality will look like. I don't think any of us know how that will shift how we are, how we live on this planet. But there's just a lot of change coming our way. And this little chart here was in a book by Mattis Center called Vortices and Spirals. And I love this visual of consciousness coming down from, from above, consciousness coming down and getting denser and denser and denser till it reaches humanity, where it's the densest it could possibly be. So it's like ideas and thoughts get denser and denser and denser until they manifest in the physical world in our 3D reality. And I don't know how that's going to shift if all of this is shifting, but I did ask for some guidance on light language, and I got this. This just was in my head, and I'm really curious if any of you have seen anything like this, because I never did. And I guess when we open it up to feedback, I'd love to hear what anyone has to say. But in my little, kind of looking at the symbols, I was kind of getting that the circle, I mean, maybe, just on a human level, I'm thinking the circles are energy fields, and those two parallel lines are the receiving and transmitting of information. So I did a little bit of research and found that it looks a little bit like the symbol for an electric circuit. So, yeah. But there's been indications, of course, that the divine feminine is coming in, right? We know this imbalance. And it is going from the grip of the 3D reality of classical physics and logic, giving away to kind of like wave potentials, right? Potentials of energy, quantum physics, and 5D fluid reality. And I just put Joan of Arc there because I was thinking of like the feminine warrior archetype, and she just represents that to me. And I love this. Love this. So there's an Inuit goddess myth about Sedna, who is a dwarf planet, right? So Sedna is active in the sky. I forget how long ago she was discovered, but I kind of watched Sedna a little bit. But there's this thing called Sabian symbols, for those of you who don't know what that is. It's connected to astrology. I know Melanie's shaking her head. Yep. Elsie Wheeler, a psychic in the 1920s, she channeled a symbol for every degree of the zodiac. So 360 symbols. And so Saturn and Neptune, when they were conjunct at 1 degrees Aries at the spring equinox this year, which is kind of the traditional, sets the tone for the year, was a woman rises out of water, a seal embraces her. Wow. I mean, if this is in divine feminine energy, they are, it's the myth of Sedna, the Inuit goddess of the ocean and marine life, which is more about, it's not just transformation, because in the myth, I'm not going to go into it all, but basically she turns into marine life. So she goes from human to marine life to goddess. It's about metamorphosis. So it's a complete renewal, almost like, the caterpillar to a butterfly. And that's where we are right now. So the earth is transforming or going through this metamorphosis. The cosmic activity and the seismic shifts, the collective, cosmic collective awakening that's happening around the planet. We're getting upgraded, absolutely. And we're having this evolutionary jump leading us to the recognition of, I guess, a greater reality than we're typically experiencing, and also our connection with our galactic heritage, too. I found this quote, the degree of consciousness corresponds to the degree of density or the speed of vibrations. For instance, the denser the matter, the less conscious it is. So this is a quote from this Armenian philosopher and mystic. Wow. I think it says it all in that last sentence there, that we are experiencing the lessening of density. So everything is really shifting. So with everything happening that we're experiencing now, I feel like all energetic modalities are going to be shifting, not just dowsing, but we're here talking about dowsing today. And I feel like our work is evolving. And I think many of you have experienced this in some way. Um, Energy is more fluid, like I said, and dynamic. This is what I'm feeling, because the trends of density are reversing. More light is coming through. The tectonic plates of the earth, fault lines, everything's shifting, everything's moving. I think energy lines and vortexes are shifting. Some are going offline, some are being reactivated, and new ones are forming. And I think that energy is relational rather than fixed. It's all in relationship, defined by its connections with other things. I feel like sacred sites are shifting, not that they're moving really, but rather that their influence is growing, getting stronger and broader, so that maybe the center of their focus is a little different. But because of these are sacred sites that have been venerated over millennia, the energy is really still strong and powerful there, even though the center may have moved a bit. I'm just suggesting that. I don't know if that's true. I haven't experienced it. I feel like we don't have a lot of those sacred sites here in the New York area, like you do in the UK, if anyone can confirm that or totally shoot that down, I'm totally open to it. And that the intensities are increasing, waking us all up. Many more people are feeling the energy than before, and we must be open to the shifts and how that may change how we do what we do, and experiment with our imagination, being playful and using our intuition than ever before. Expanding our toolkit. I mean, I know I have been using all different modalities more in the last few years, like dreams, tarot, automatic writing, channeling, to understand what's going on the landscape. And I feel that new places of power are emerging. I already said that, and fear versus love. And there is this loosening up of assigning blame to the land for our ill health or fortune, bad fortune, because that is just reinforcing the victim mentality, right? So I'm feeling like supporting the vibration of love on the land helps others to loosen that victim mentality and to really build relationship with the landscape. Again, would love to hear what you guys have to say. Um, I'm just going to go through this really quick because I realize how much time I've spent. So I'm personally stepping away from healing the earth, really to more holding space. And I think many of you practice this as well. Holding the space, the energetic space for Gaia to heal with respect and love and deep reverence. Our environmental crisis is really a spiritual crisis, I feel, and allowing for the greater coherence and to receive and transmit cosmic light. So this is another interesting, quick little case study. A client in Ithaca had me work with her. I did this remotely and then went on site. So when I was doing it remotely, I was like, you know, we're always finding new things, right? Discovering new things. So I was finding all these little like vortexes across her property. She was having her and her neighbors on that side of the road were all having trouble with, you know, divorces, major illness, financial ruin, all sorts of stuff. So when I visited her, I was like, yeah, I don't know. So I shared this with her. And I also shared with her that when I tuned in, I heard a fairy path. Now, this was completely new to me. I haven't consciously worked with fairies before ever. And I was like, okay, fairy path. Okay, cool. But they're vortexes. I just thought it was a little odd. So when I went on site and I shared it with her, her eyes were like, oh my God. She was like, my neighbor came over just this morning and pointed out these circles on her property, and he called them fairy rings. We know those mushrooms, right? Fairy rings that appear on the land. And they were in those places that I outlined on the map, give or take. And what I was getting was that this line, this fairy path, was going through her house. So her house was basically in the way, and she was on a hill. So it was like the fairies, their or nature path or dragon line, right? I think we have all these different names from our cultures that represent this energy of nature spirit flowing on the land. And then all of a sudden you build a house and, it's not harmonious with their energy. So when I shared that with her, it was like, we just have to connect with the fairies and ask if they will continue to just, to bestow their blessings, but if they could just divert their path a little bit around the house. So that's what we did. We gave them a path. We asked their permission. We gave them a path around the house. And she contacted me. Oh, well, before we did the ceremony, I forgot to say it was pouring out when I first got there. When we finished the ceremony, the clouds were parting. The sun was coming through, those rays of sun onto the land. It was beautiful. And we really felt confirmation from the land. The fairies were like, yes, yes. And she was sharing with me that fairy rings were, had popped up on her neighbor's yard, and she did a little ceremony with them. So it was just really lovely that she kind of took it that next level and helped her neighbors. Prince Edward Island is a place that I've been doing a lot of projects. I've been working with a client in British Columbia. They're friends of mine. She channels galactic beings, and her husband is very earth centered, very much in tune with the landscape. And they brought like 7 properties for me to look at. So I looked at this one property, um, and I did, of course, remote dowsing on this land. I will be visiting at some point, maybe next year. But anyhow, I found not to search for negative energy. Again, I was told to search just for positive. I found these 2 humongous power spots. I mean, this is a 25-acre piece of property on the eastern tip of Prince Edward Island, and undeveloped. And wow, I mean, ley lines connecting these power spots. It was really, I felt like a preview of what's awakening globally. And so I did my luminosity scale reading, and it was a 94 plus. I mean, it was really high energy before, I didn't do any ceremony at all. I'm just connecting in with the land. And, I was getting that this was galactic portals. Galactic beings were coming through these spirit portals, or not spirit portals, but galactic portals. I never had that before. But of course, I was influenced by my client doing that kind of work. So I just was like, let me see if I have a dream. So that night, I actually did have a dream. I was kayaking in a lush forest on these canals, beautiful canals, with my client. We go out to the beach, and we found highly evolved beings on the beach. And still in the dream, so in that next morning in the dream, right, I'm deciding to go out on my own, and I go through these canals, and there was just this magical sunlight filtering through the leaves. It was this embracing earth energy. And I realized that, yes, there were many benefic galactic beings that were really energizing this land. And they were very active on the land. And I did some channeling then, automatic writing, and found that they really did they were Palladian and Syrian, and they confirmed they wanted my clients to be caretakers of this land. And they were very clear. Like, this is their life path, and this is how we're going to help humanity by working with individuals like this. And they also brought me to another property, the same client. This one had a house, and they could buy multiple pieces of property. So that other piece was going to be, maybe they'd put an RV on it, where they could, a trailer, they could live, go for weekends. This other property was also very, very high, had a huge power spot over the entire house. And there was also water leaks that kept being a challenge. And I discovered that this is a large power spot. So I'm like, why would there be water leaks on this with a large power spot? But it was that, the house shouldn't have been built right there, basically, right? It was obviously a new house, but there was that cupola at the top that was like right over the power spot. And I felt like it was, divinely inspired without any conscious awareness. That is where my client will do her ET channeling, up in that. I mean, it was clear. She was like, that's where I'm going to be. So I got the information that these constant leaks can be fixed, but they need to buy the house. And it would be, inexpensive, but I would not get the transmission of what they need to do until after they're in there. And there needs to be a ceremony. So they're meant to be there again to anchor this energy into the earth grid. And I just realized that there were all these very high levels of luminosity on all these properties that I realized that Prince Edward Island is basically like a new earth chakra, pretty much the whole island. So, this is just contributing to all that. And I'm going to really end here. I think I've done enough. I just want to say that my work in dowsing is more about re-enchanting the landscape and my clients basically opening up to the shifts in how we work together with the earth and with interplanetary beings, and that this consciousness raising is an evolutionary impulse that we cannot stop. It's going forward and it will create harmony eventually, hoping that we'll get to see that. And yeah, I'm going to open it up now so that we can have some dialogue. I'll stop talking.
Oh, Maureen, I think just some of the comments, like, people have been really enchanted with your sharing and your stories. So I don't know if we want you to stop talking. It's been magical, your journey. And wow, with Prince Edward Island, and you gave us a little bit of a hint that there might be a bit of a reveal about the energies there in a new Earth chakra. How beautiful is that? Um, and people, if they're not familiar with that island, they may be familiar with Anne of Green Gables,
Right.
which, if you think about the character of what she is like, she is so full of joy and so connected with magic, storytelling, nature, and that sense of living really closely with the land. So yeah, what a lovely talk you've shared with us this evening. So much inspiration. So yeah, thank you so much. um,
Oh, thank
um,
you.
would anyone like to start with a question for some of the topics Maureen shared? Anything that resonates, anything that if you maybe raise your hand. I'm just going to go. Do you want to keep the screen share on?
Oh, I'll
Or do you
stop.
want to?
I'll stop.
Okay.
Yeah.
And yeah, Melanie.
Maureen, that was wonderful. Thank you so, so much. Um, I
Thank you.
worked for years in a forest as a forest ranger, and I've seen the change in people and how they respond to the natural world. And I worked in Kent, but where Kent kind of hit London, which wasn't very pretty. And there was an awful lot of high-rise flats and horrible situations. And the people used to be there in the woods. It was ancient woodlands. It was beautiful. And now you can't get them outside. You can't. We're screaming for connection with the land. My husband and I used to teach there as well in a youth centre with young people. And we've started taking them on techless walks through the woods. They have all their phones taken off and they're left in the center. And then we take them in the woods and they are terrified of the woods for a while. And then we get them doing things and they're like children again. And once they get that childlike love of the earth back, it completely transforms them. And they stop worrying about their phones. They actually get anxiety if you take their phone away for more than 10 minutes. So, they have to have go see a counselor. It's terrifying. So we're coming to this point where we've lost that connection. And if the whole thing about the forest bathing and all the things you're saying, it's so important. It's really important. We need that. Otherwise, we're going to lose our connection, which we really desperately need. But anyway, thank you. I really appreciate what you.
Yes, yes. Thank you. Yeah, Melanie, and the work that you do. I do think it's as simple as showing them the gate in a
Mm,
safe environment. That that's key. Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you, Melanie. Chris.
Hi, Maureen. Thanks for an inspiring talk. That was really great.
Oh, thank you, Chris.
Early on in your talk, there was a phrase that I'm not familiar with, appeared on one of your slides. The phrase light codes. Could you tell us a bit about that? What that concept is, please?
Sure. It's so light language is this idea, or it is this consciousness that's coming to our planet from cosmic sources to help the evolution of humanity. And actually, my client that I mentioned before, she's been channeling light codes or light language for decades, and her mother before her. But it's becoming a little bit more known, I guess, in certain circles now. I don't know a whole lot about it, except for the fact that it is higher levels of consciousness that are coming to our planet, and that water is the conductor. Light and water are the conductors for this information to get disseminated across the planet. And we're emitting light codes when we're of a higher frequency. I hope that helps. That's probably about as much as I can share about them. That's my
Yeah,
knowledge. It
yeah,
ends about there.
yeah. The I'd come across that sort of concept, but not with the phrase light code. So yeah, it makes sense. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. And Chris, yeah, my experience of that kind of topic has been if anyone's ever studied Reiki and you have the Reiki symbols or had a chance to see crop circles and those kinds of shapes, imagine if they're drawn in light and air or plasma in front of you or coming down, just raining gently in front of your awareness. That's the sense I've had of that kind of experience. Um,
Uh,
Sam, oh, sorry, yeah, Maureen.
just 1 second. That image that I had of the circle with the two parallel lines, actually, that was a query that I made about light language, and that's what I got. I
Mm,
got that light language is love, and I saw that image and I went, oh, that's really interesting. I've never seen anything like that before. So,
mm.
yeah, yeah,
Thank,
interesting symbols.
yeah, and Sam, you raised your hand. Where are you, Sam?
Hi.
Hi, hi. Yeah, you posted about the symbol in the chat, didn't you, as well, I think.
Yeah, as soon as I looked at it, I got a really strong message, and it felt like it came from like light beings, and that this symbol had been used. It showed me it being used in caves and things in the different times, like when the earth has been restarted, so say like Atlantean times and before. So it's a recognized symbol, like a universal and multi-universal, multi-dimensional sign. And I got shown that was that we, the people who are conscious, the people who are aware of these earth energies and the light language and the work that we've been doing in the invisible energies, um, we'll be holding the resonance, and then that resonance will then bring others into resonance where they can, at whatever level they can, like depending on us, depending on them, depending on what's coming through from the light language.
Wow, that feels so right. Wow.
I can feel beings in your space, like supporting you. It's beautiful. Yeah, they're just like so happy with your work, like, and just like being around you. um I've actually started healing with light language just in the last sort of few weeks. I've been in communication with different beings and things, and just to jump in to put it into perspective, in February I was in Brazil in Alto Paradiso, just kind of out in the middle of nowhere. doing a plant medicine ceremony with a friend and shaman from the jungle and things. And when I got to the land, I was presented with a multi-dimensional like airport space that was like the size of Charles de Gaulle or Schiphol Airport. And it was showing me going to the different dimensions, the different universes, and just kind of like all unfolding. And it was just like the most natural thing in the world. So it was um like it was just naturally there, like as if it was just in a dimension just slightly off of ours. And there, all the dimensions are open. So, like the fairies and, all the other different realms that we're used to. So it was like sort of, I don't know if it was 1 to 12 realms there. And it feels like there are more of these places being happier to be shown and to be like visible like that. Because
Right.
I found another one in Roslyn Chapel in the graveyard. That was the first one that I ever found that spirit like directed me to. But yeah, I didn't mean to make this about anything about I've experienced. I just wanted to ask, if you don't mind me asking, um, with everything that's happening, where do you see your work being in 5 years' time, or even just 1 year's time, if 5 years is too much with everything that's happening to be able to predict or feel into?
That's a really great question. And I have no idea. I would love to hear what other people see in another year or a few. I really don't know. I do I do believe very firmly that the more people are awakening and opening up that this is new for, that the more we can be there to support them and help them through, because the worldview shift is so drastic for some people that I really feel there's going to be a lot of hand holding
Yeah,
and
I,
people.
I
Yeah,
was just going to say I completely agree with that. And also, like, I used to do a lot of healing work in the past, but it's like I've been moved away from that too. And it's almost like I'm enough to just be in resonance, to provide materials for other people to study so that I can get things out into a further reach, but also do it in tiny baby steps way, like gently leading people in with maybe runes and blessings and things I would have never considered before, because I thought that I had to do all of this like super intense warrior like full on I don't know, like hypnosis, shamanic, like fix them all in one session, like all the secrets of the world, work on them immediately. And it's like it feels like all of that's been taken away, and it's like, nope, be in resonance.
absolutely. And I love that you just said that, because to me, the message has been so clear to me. Simple, simple, simple. It takes a lot less to move from here to there than it ever did. And actually, I think the more we embody that, we feel that, the more it will happen. I really feel like exactly how you are working, I'm doing less.
Thank you so much for answering. It's just been incredible listening to you. Appreciate you so much.
Thank you so much, Sam, for sharing.
Thank you, Sam. Amy. Hi, Amy.
Hi. I just wanted to say that I agree with what Sam has, well, but both of you have just said, because I think what seems to be changing is the speed at which, I don't know if it's the same for everybody, but the speed at which I'm learning. And it's like something will come to me that I need to incorporate into my practice with my clients. And almost as soon as I've grasped it, then I'm hit with another. It's like, right, now and this, come on, you need to do this now, and this and this and this. And I've never, it's like, it's just moving so fast. But it really is about, like you said, Maureen, about keeping everything simple, because my clients need it to be delivered in a really simple way. And I used to go to, there was years and years back when people were first getting into this sort of work and speaking in the way that we're all speaking, it all sounded so complicated and so esoteric, and so like, and my brain would be, I don't know what that person's just said. I've listened to them for the last hour and I have no idea. But now it's like we're all being led to make it simple, because it's not about us learning, because we are all learning. It's about bringing those that have never worked in this way to what we're doing, and we have to make it so that they can get it on whatever level it is, I guess. But yeah, that's all I was. I just was agreeing with you, basically. That's it. So.
Wonderful to hear that, Amy.
Great. Thank you, Amy. And is anyone else wishing to share? Paul, you sent a message in the chat, and I don't know, Melanie, if there's an email that you can share.
I'm just going to check that 1 second.
Yeah, while you're doing that, maybe Maureen, if you can have a look in the chat, in the meeting chat, that you'll see some of the lovely feedback people have been sharing. There's also connected with previously, what Sam was saying about the symbols. I posted a picture of a drawing I channeled with some Pleiadian sort of energies around me many moons ago. And it just reminded me, obviously that's upright for me, but yours was like the side on.
Wow.
But it was very much like the messages that came through when I was just almost like automatic drawing. That was the colors felt really Pleiadian to me. And it felt like I was being guided, that it was a portal somewhere near Orion, that where you could almost jump with your consciousness to anywhere realm, but it's right here, whenever we want to access it. So it felt like this sort of connection point, jump off point for the limitlessness of wherever you want to travel,
Wow.
astrally or, energetically. So that just reminded me very much of
that is beautiful.
Yeah, and it felt like the language around the side was like maybe a light language or something. It just felt like a script of some kind that was around the edge. And I was showing some really beautiful buildings, a bit like Sam, what you were saying with the airports. I was showing these really beautiful, tall, sweeping, elegant, organic buildings. It was so stunning. And, in terms of biophilic design, oh my gosh, just that connection with that. And yeah, I was going to say, people, Thomas, thanks for sharing the crop circle image. And, I was thinking with your drawing of the circle with the lines, it just reminds me of how crop circles have that sort of symbol as well sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yes,
they feel
thank you
like
for sharing
language.
that.
Yeah, they feel symbolic-y language, like but visual language somehow, the crop circles. Yeah.
Will I be able to get all the notes, because I can't read them all?
Yes. I'll send you
Great.
a copy, Maureen.
Great, thank you.
All
Yeah,
right.
Melanie.
I've got Paul's picture. It's actually on my personal email, that's why I couldn't find it. Paul, do you want me to put this up? Where's he gone?
Thomas has got a question. So
I noticed that. Shall I wait till after Thomas?
so only deal with me if nobody else asks the
We
question.
all love you, Paul. Don't feel left out.
Thomas, would you like to
Hello, thank you, Maureen, for lecture. And I was just triggered by whole lecture, but the symbol you show triggered me even more, because in 2018, I think I saw crop circle that had similar symbol, and then it was like haunting me, but positively. And then all of a sudden, this I knew a little bit of this Vedic knowledge, and it like automatically came to me this name Jagannath, which in India means the Lord of the universe. And this came to me like kind of not there is a lot to talk about this philosophy of the Lord Jagannath, Lord of the universe, but because this is the symbol, this is kind of a language, that there is language beyond all languages. I know humans created Esperanto, but there is this language beyond all languages that we could communicate telepathically. Maybe this is the light language, but I had some experience with light language, and maybe the symbol represent this light language itself.
Yeah.
I was thinking just
Yeah.
nothing else, but just this light language, the universal language. I don't know whether this is the letter of this language or something else. Could
You
be
know,
explored.
right. And one thing I understand from other people who are channeling light language, because I'm really not. I mean, I just got that one image, but I'm understanding that it's not a set alphabet. It's constantly shifting, and I guess everything has to be interpreted on its
Yeah,
own.
maybe the symbol, it triggers communication that we can communicate with every entity in this universe. Yeah, because it's funny to say, but I didn't know the what light language is. I knew in 2019 I met one lady. She told me about this because I told her about this experience that I started to telepathically communicate with a catfish in the tank I had in my room, and the catfish then just gave me message about real place in, actually this was in USA, and I couldn't believe this is real, you know. Am I going crazy or what? But then I checked it. Then I had more stories like this, and in Avebury, in hand shop, I found later this book, Star Origins: Wisdom of Animals by Jacqueline Smith, and then she explains this very well. So I think, in my opinion, this symbol is connected to that light language, universal language, and the Lord of the universe, which means the Lord Jagannath. Thank you for taking that I took so much time. Thank you.
Thank
Again.
you for that, Tomas.
Thank you, Thomas. I wrote down the name of the book you shared on the screen as well, because I think maybe some of us might find that interesting. Star Origins, to do with animals. I've just said Jacqueline Smith, so thank you very much indeed. Yeah. And Stuart, are you ready to ask a question?
Yes, hello.
Hello.
Maureen, that was beautiful. It was
Thank you.
expressing so much of what is going on right now so beautifully. Your your grasp of it is lovely, and your understanding of the consciousness of the cosmic field is, I found, particularly gorgeous to hear. Your expression of how Pam Gregory works as well. And I think that is all very relative. I get the feeling that our planet is spinning around the sun. And I believe that our sun is actually spinning as well, spiraling as well. So as a universe, we're spiraling in a larger universe. And we're going through this amazing thing that's far too big for us to even comprehend, which has its various areas in it. For instance, we're leaving Pisces and going into Aquarius, and all the beautiful changes that are happening as a result of that, going from patriarchy to feminine attitudes more as well. So there's a greater touchy-feeliness. And of course, all this constriction and problem is over the poor old patriarchy having to go, I don't want to change, but I'll have to. And they don't like it. But they've got no choice. We're going through space, and the space we're going into isn't going to stop and say, "All right, you don't have to come in here." We're going in, whether we like it or not. And I think the acceptance of it is a great thing to give us a sense of relaxation and understanding of it all. Well, that's my take on it as we go at the moment. But what I wanted to bring up was your diagram with the circle and the two lines. Um, I think we've all got something out of that, and all of it seems to me to relate to communication exchange.
Yeah.
Like the circle can represent a person, and as you say, there's the in and the out. It's also like a light bulb diagram of the two currents going in to the
Yeah.
unit. And as somebody else pointed out too, we have on standing stones and rocks and things ancient prehistoric art, and we have a thing called the cup and rings.
Yes.
And sometimes there are lines going between those cups and rings, as if it's like some form of expression of communication between different cups. And there's also a stone near me in Cornwall where there's a star map actually put on top of a stone. And there's lots of cups and rings, and it relates to the cosmos above. And that one more point, and then I'll shut up and let somebody else say something. That diagram, I knew there was something at the back of my mind that is like, "Hey, hold on a minute, I know there's more about this. There's more about this. It's not just communication cups of lines. It's not just a plug." And then I realized what it was. So I'm going to show you this diagram. I hope it works from a book. The book is Robert Temple. Can you see that, or is it coming up in reverse?
A new science of heaven.
New Science of Heaven. Yeah.
Oh,
Can you
yes.
see that?
That second one down.
Yep. Now that is a diagram of what's called a plasma gun, and it's experimental work in plasma. You see this one here. A plasma a plasmoid has been launched, and it's circling as it leaves the two contacts that have created it.
Hmm.
Uh, Plasma is 99% of our universe. It carries data, it carries knowledge. It basically it is communication and knowledge. So we are getting messages from the cosmos all the time. With the solar spots, we're getting more and more plasma from the corona rejections. So we're getting a huge amount of data. And to me, that's also a symbol of that plasma that's whooshing
Wow.
through to us.
Wow. It's so exciting, isn't it? There's just
Exactly,
so much we can dive into. Oh,
isn't it? It is so exciting. We are living in very exciting times. Yeah. So thank you. Bless you. Beautiful. It's a
oh.
lovely space to be in. I appreciate what you're up to.
I am just so grateful for this group. There's no other group that I could just go on and talk about this stuff and people to respond in this way and connect and
Yeah.
share and discuss.
Yeah.
It's really unique.
We're not only earth energies, we're cosmic energies as well.
Yes,
And
right.
cosmic beings. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stu. That's so lovely. Um, Something I'm really grateful you shared, Maureen, is your luminosity scale.
Oh,
And what a special way. And I so concur, we're moving from that old paradigm of, finding and fixing problems to how can we expand light and consciousness and love And the luminosity scale is just such a blessing that you shared that with us today, because it really resonates, you know, as a very easy way to just, you know, create even more high vibe spaces and experiences and connections with Mother Earth. So yeah, that is really stunning. Thank you.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, I can send it to the group if you want. I can send it on to Melanie.
Yeah,
And yeah, if
thank
anyone
you.
wants, you know, it's just a simple pendulum chart that was inspired by that map of consciousness.
Yeah, yeah, and Dr. David Hawkins' work is it's timeless, isn't it? And it's really helpful as an orientation map. And Melanie, are you ready to share anything? And thank you for sharing stuff,
If
Paul.
Paul's ready, I'm just looking where I put the picture now.
Okay. So don't share it just yet, but
I can't find it, don't worry.
but
Turn
one of
up
the
with
reasons
it.
one of the reasons why I say let me go last is let everybody else go first. And tonight I think we've had a first because Stuart Dow has spoken to us. And that is a lovely little piece of magic in its own right. And I think everybody's appreciated something from that. And certainly I have, because I've never heard Stuart talk before. But if you can, please, Melanie and Alex, get Stuart to talk about what's going on inside his head and what's going on outside it, because that would take us about 4 hours to get through. However, so Maureen, um, great brief, yeah. I've got to admit that I didn't listen to about 45 minutes of it. And that's because of some of the ideas that you sparked in my mind as we're going through this. And of course, the first person to ask questions was our dear friend, and his name's going to slip my mind now. And his name is Chris Tong. And Chris Tong, you won't know this, but Chris Tong was one of the first people to set up this group. And we started working on this sometime around 2016 or whatever it was. I can't remember. But someone else who was very instrumental in this was Maeve Calvert, who doesn't seem to be here with us tonight. However, there was a stage around 2017, 2018, when Maeve said something like, something strange is happening here because there are more emperor dragons appearing in Yorkshire. There is connection taking place, something is happening, and at some stage after I've retired, I'll start to fill in some of the gaps on this. But something strange was happening. And since that time, I've been wondering what this is all about, because I can only experience what I experience in my lifetime. I see stuff on YouTube about a great change is coming and all this sort of stuff. And I'm as cynical as in this sort of stuff as David is, because there are some wacko people out there, but there are some other people who you get a sense of connection with, that these things do work. And that's one reason why you will see me sat here spinning one of these, which is my bullshit detector that I use as I'm going along. But the question that I got that was planted in my mind was this change thing. Are things changing generally in the world, or is it changes in me, changes in my abilities to douse, blah, 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 blah. Melanie, get ready to share. So basically, and she will now share, and a picture will come up, and this is how I wasted the first 45 minutes of your talk. So what I did was I did a time chart, and I did the time chart showing my existence on planet Earth so far. Now, I'm not allowed to douse into the future, right? I know that I can, but I'm told not to, okay? But I can do that for the rest of the planet, right? I'm allowed to do that. So basically, I've got a 0 point, and then I've got between 1960 and 2030. You will see a black line, which is my rest of the world line. And that's the line that I doused for first, because this was a test of myself as to whether it was me or whether it was the universe. And this links back to what you were saying earlier about your reawakening, shall I say? And I've put a marker down there as about 2008, which is a step change in my life in the same way that it was with yours. And the little red line that you see on there is me, right?
Yeah.
As to how I've developed in that period. And it really is quite weird because it seems to anticipate the stages at which I sort of had upgrades or whatever it was. So things are happening before I know they're happening. So I'm going to encourage people out there to do a similar sort of test of yourself, douse for the planet and douse for yourself. See where you fit in on this, because we've got individually, I think we've all got a sense of reawakening and sense of growth, but there is a general trend that underpins this that I think that is my takeaway from tonight, if you like, that something is happening. Now, when you look at the black line, which is the rest of the world, I've got a plateau or even a slight downward tilt from where we are today in 2005 to 2030. I'm not sure why that is. For myself, I get an increase going on, but something strange is happening, like a pause or maybe a tilt, kind of where we are this year, next year, maybe the year after. But there is something else that I'll share with you afterwards, which relates to the circle and the two lines that makes me indicate that there are 8 seasonal quarters to go. I don't know what those 8 seasonal quarters are yet, but when Stuart was talking about revolving and turning and things like that, they're things that resonate from the Dreamtime image that I was given this March. So there is symbolism, there is meaning in what you just said in terms of the circle and the lines, etc. There is a significance in the sun that is part of that. And yeah, so any thoughts on that, or is that at all helpful? What do you think is going to happen with this great shift? Tell me what you think is going to happen.
Are you asking me?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Oh, well, I have to just say briefly, and I'd love to hear Stuart's take. But I feel that we are definitely on this evolutionary path that's unstoppable, that is bringing our consciousness up. I don't know what it's going to look like, but I understand from others that there's going to be these two timelines that are actually diverging. And I hear this from people channeling galactic beings, as well as the astrologers that I follow, including Pam Gregory, that there's those of us who are open to this um, expansion of consciousness, and there are those that aren't, and they're going to continue on this path. But eventually, we'll all get to the same place, and I don't know when. However, I just want to point out 2030, a lot of astrologers are saying that the changes that we're going through now, it's like really accelerating and will level off, I think, in 2032 is, what the astrology is showing. So that's kind of interesting. It looks like it's a plateau there.
For me, it looks like either a plateau or a reversal. I didn't take it any further beyond 2030 because the future is variable. It's not fixed.
True. Yeah.
Okay. And so you've got to be careful what your thoughts are about the future, because that can condition what actually happens in the future. So you've got to be very careful with intent.
Yes.
But something very strange is happening at the moment. At one stage you said, is it the same in the UK as it is in America? I feel that it is, but it isn't, because something different is happening in America. And that is obvious from the news all around us. There is a big cultural shock taking place in America, and it's happening daily. And so there is a massive reawakening, I feel, happening in the States that isn't necessarily happening here because we're already partially in that groove, if you know what I mean. And Maureen, I do work with American people, and they are totally disconnected from the land. And it takes a big shock, like the one that you had with the tree or whatever, to cause that flip to take place. So you got to take care of your own people and find a way through the stages that are happening in the next 2 years. It's going to be a very dynamic time.
Yeah.
And with that, you said, what do other people think is going to happen with this great shift? So please do chime in and say something. Stuart, you've
Hello.
not said anything for 5 minutes. Come on, say something.
Damn it. Well, I agree with so much of what you're saying that all I can just say is yes, yes, yes. Yes, I believe that we are going into a great shift, a great change as well. And it's curious that your dowsing decided, or you decided to stop at 2030. As I think many people might well be aware, there's an awful lot of talk about 2030. There's an awful lot of talk about agenda. There's an awful lot of talk about the patriarchy trying to control us. And they seem to have a date attached to their control system, and it's 2030. Everything has to be done by 2030. They seem to be in a hurry to change things or to get things, to bridle things. And I feel that there is a bridling going on. And what we're seeing in America is this, I'm going to swear, no, I better not, but it's F off, we ain't going to be bridled going on. And it's causing an awful lot of anger and distress. Those that don't want to change and say, right, I want it changed this way, and those that say, I want it changed this way. I think America, being a younger civilization, a hodgepodge of all the civilizations out of Europe, is almost, it's a hybrid, and it's learning its space and its place, and it's going through birthing pains. And I hope that it's a civilization that's growing rather than declining. But it seems to me at the moment that the whole of the Western society is in decline, and we seem to have a new arrival, whether we like it or not, coming in from the east, which is the way the sun revolves as well. So it seems like there's a new dawn coming. Whether geopolitically that's a good thing or bad thing, I don't wish to go into. I'm taking it more from the energetic point of view. So yes, sorry, I've lost my thread a little bit there. I think that we are going into change. 2030 is very, very important to us. I think they're sensitive to it because they are also aware with their astrology and their understanding that things are ramping up. We are in a space of greater intensity now. And as a result of that greater intensity, there's this greater wish for control. I don't know what you think or anybody thinks about that, so I'll leave it there. I hope Paul, that's answered you.
Fear is the fear that Maureen was talking about, which leads to the need for control, isn't it? So I understand.
Stuart, you said a lot of things that I couldn't. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much. Well, vice versa, actually. So we'll work as a team.
Yeah. Thank you, Stu.
Alex,
Yeah.
they prove that fear makes you more stupid. It makes you make bad decisions.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah.
So if you actually look this up, fear puts you in a totally different state, so you don't react intelligently. And
Right.
so maybe that's what they're doing it. Maybe that's why. Let's make us all frightened.
It puts you in survival mode.
That's it. That's the one. Thank you, Maureen.
And it's just you're making your decisions based on your survival, which is not a good place to be.
Yeah, that's right. Fight or flight. That's where they want us.
Thank you.
We're the resistors. We're the resistors.
We got our dowsing in a sat nav, haven't we? We know where we're heading.
Yes.
David.
Hi, Alex.
Hi.
Maureen, Thank you. That was a lovely talk. But my comment I want to make is an answer to Paul. Um, Paul, your chart, you had a bit of a dip where you are spiritually kind of climbing, and then you drop down a little bit. I've had one or two of those. It has been, for me, it's been because I have believed other people's beliefs. Instead of holding true to what I can see, I have I wasted years trying to work out all about the human aura because it was said that it was in such and such a way, and it isn't. Once I got past that, I started being able to do far more than I could before. So you've only got to fall into the trap of believing a belief which is going to take you down, and you'll go. So that's something that you need to be really careful of.
Okay, so David, you want me to answer that? So
Um,
um, I dowsed the line for my own consciousness, for my own awareness, shall we say, which is kind of linked to dowsing and stuff. I dowsed that, and I was interested that my dowsing increased between the ages of 0 and 10, and then decreased until I was like 15 or 18. Then I had a bump up. But then for some reason, when I had kids, it declined. It actually went down. And
yeah,
there are periods of my life when I've spent an awful lot of time working and working hard and not dowsing. Do you know what I mean? And so your own consciousness, ability, awareness, ability to communicate with trees or whatever does vary through different stages of your life.
mm,
And so, yeah, that happens. This wibble that I've got around 2005, 225 and 230, it's a wibble. It goes up and down a lot. It's a bit like a Trump signature, if you know what I mean from recently seeing these things. And there is uncertainty. And it is kind of linked to this fear that people have been talking about
Yeah.
and not knowing what the future is. So I'm going to chime in with what Melanie was saying about finding your own path and not letting your fears of the future affect how you douse. Does that make sense, David?
yeah, but that's the same as not following other people's beliefs. Another part
Absolutely.
of it.
And that's what she started off by saying, if you remember. This trap that people do fall into of you douse something and then I douse something else, and they're not the same, and one of you has got to be wrong. That
Right.
is not the case
Right.
because everybody douses different levels of the same thing. And so never discount what people are saying.
Mm.
Also, when you operate in groups, be very careful of how your consciousness affects other people also dowsing in that group, because that can affect the way that you douse in turn. It's the same way in which if you try to douse in a fearful situation, you're not going to get good results. So you've just got to put yourself into the zone and be in your own zone and respond truthfully and honestly to how you feel with your gut feeling, your body, that things are around you. Is that okay?
Lovely.
Yeah.
Thank you all. Okay. What lovely shared space and contributions and ideas and energies that we've all connected with and shared. Lovely. Are we ready for the kindly luminous beings blessing? Okay. Kindly luminous beings, guardians of this Zoom space, we leave in love and peace and give thanks for your blessings, protection, love and hospitality for ourselves, the technology and the communications whilst we are in this Zoom space. And so let it be. Mm. Thank you all.
Thank you all for allowing me to share and to share your experiences and thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you.